Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? It's Monday, it's bank holiday, it's the week after the global situation changed, which will have impact. Unfortunately, always has. We will see how much impact it will have. Sad times in terms of what is happening in the world. But anyway, we are positive. So we're going to make the best out of it. We're going to sail it. Like Santi said, we're going to be careful. We're going to be looking for setting the right sails. And it's going to be fine. Not the first time. Not going to be the first. Or it's not the first time. It's not going to be the last time. That's just what we have to do. Right? Working in the dark. Good morning, everyone. For those Americans and Canadians, happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Huh?
Maggie is also there. Louis is
Hello.
there. Hello, how are you
Hello.
doing, guys?
I
Happy
think you got
Thanksgiving
the
to
holiday
you.
wrong.
No? Why?
It's not
It's
Thanksgiving.
it's Thanksgiving in Canada, right?
In Canada?
Isn't it?
I'm not
No,
sure.
it's Columbus Day.
No, in Canada? Oh, Thanksgiving.
It is. It is Thanksgiving in Canada, I think.
See, okay, yeah, I got this. I thought like it's the same day like in US. So forgive me that. Then only so happy Columbus Day, right? Perfect for sailing the world, Columbus, right? And happy Thanksgiving to the Canadian folks. So no Thanksgiving in US. Yeah, okay, sorry guys. Now the Canadian can say thank you M7 to think about us, right?
Look, 500 years ago, Louis' great-grand uncle discovered you guys. So
Yes,
True,
the
it's true.
great uncle from Louis, cancel M7. Oh, love it. Love it, love it, love it.
We think about every country here, right? Canada, everything.
Yeah, I'm just a nice person, you know. I take care of all of you, so don't cancel me, please, US guys. I didn't mean it. Every day with M7 is Thanksgiving. I love that. That's how we should see the world, right? Every day there is something positive to
Yep.
to do, right? So, no trading today, at least for me. I don't know how you do it, but for me, nothing interesting. Oil situation over the weekend, not the best day, probability wise. ES bank holiday, so also nothing. So, what we gonna do today is we're gonna make a little model stream. What do you think about it? I like models, so let's do a model stream. So much discussion over the weekend about models in the MSC chat. So yeah, I thought let's clear up some confusion maybe, and let's dig into the models and see where we get. Everyone has watched, by the way, the performance coaching stream from yesterday. Who doesn't love models? Exactly, Six God. Who doesn't? I love them. In every part of my life, I love it. Models are just awesome in every single moment and situation, of course. Is it up already? What? I think should be up.
Yeah, I don't think it is yet. I don't think.
Why is it not up? It was yesterday. Come on, guys. Can't be like that. Okay, sorry then. I have to rant a little bit internally, I guess, when it's not up 24 hours later. Okay, everybody text, who's that Dom, please? What the heck? Please, yeah, do that, Josh. Okay, so I have updated, if you look at my screen right now, I have updated the idea he's still sleeping. Come on, it's 6:30 in the evening in Dubai, like if he would still sleep. And you don't want to be my brother in general and work with me. That's like the biggest the biggest punishment you can have, having me as a brother and work with me. That's like the standard is very high. He's on Thanksgiving, yeah, I think so. He's on Thanksgiving. I totally agree with this. So I have updated the models a little bit. Gonna remove, let's take it serious. We're gonna remove the Voldemort name and we just call it upside and downside. So let's go over the models and the classification. Upside expansion, downside expansion, it's already a model which we know, right? Which we defined already before. So whatever the high is always the IDR high, the mid is the mid, and the IDR low is the lower part of the box I have drawn there, right? So upside expansion model means that the following session, like that could be the ADR session, that could be the ODR session, or ODR, RDR. So we always look at models when you want to do the backtesting in terms of ADR to ODR, ODR to RDR, and then we go start again, RDR to ADR, if you want to collect data, right? So for an upside expansion model, the box, and when we talk about the box, we are really talking only about the box, right? If we want to classify data, we have to have hard rules, and we are taking only the IDR box as defining area how we classify models, right? So if the ADR session looks like that, the ODR session to become an upside expansion model. So the IDR low has to be above the 50%, the midline of the ADR low, right? Let's add maybe sessions to it, ADR and ODR, for example, right? Okay, so 50%, like there are two rules to it. The IDR low has to be above the previous box mid, IDR mid, and the high, the IDR high, has to be above the high of the previous session, right? So let's write this down. IDR low bigger equal right, here we go. Bigger equal previous IDR mid. And IDR high bigger. What is going on here? Hello? I'm pressing the wrong button, guys. IDR is bigger than the previous IDR high. Okay? MG, let's go step by step, right? The first thing, we are looking only in the boxes. We are not caring about whatever the candles are doing, right? With models, it starts with the box. Everything else is then coming later on, right? You have to first look at the boxes and define the boxes, and then we can go from there. Any questions? Should be clear for everyone. So ODR into ADR. So when it's a downside expansion model, the IDR low has to be smaller or equal than the previous mid, and the IDR low has to be smaller than the previous IDR low. Then it is a downside expansion model. Okay? All boxes are IDRs. Yes, we are only looking at the IDR. We don't care about the DR. It's only boxes are always drawn around the IDR high and the IDR low. And also the midpoint is the IDR midpoint. Okay. So upside expansion, downside expansion is clear, right? So now let's go to normal upside and downside. Let's go one row below. Let's combine these two. So let's do it like this and like this. Look. Okay, a normal upside without the X, so normal upside model or downside model, which we called before Voldemort, but actually we are not at Harry Potter, so let's give it a real name. So we call this from now on upside. We call this from upside and downside without the X. So we leave away X stands for expansion, right? So we call this a normal upside and downside model. And that is when the IDR low, right, is bigger than the previous IDR low. And the high is bigger than the previous IDR high, right? So this low has to be higher than this low. And the IDR high from the ODR has to be higher than this high, right? Upside 15, Upside Pro Max, and Upside Pro Max Ultra, exactly. Same goes for the downside model. So the IDR low, high, sorry, that should be high. The IDR high should be smaller than the previous IDR high. And the IDR low has to be smaller than the previous IDR low. And here we have to change this. It should be the high is smaller or equal than the previous. For upside, downside, are the IDR mids considered? No. For upside, does it matter where the mid is? Do you see the mid mentioned there? No.
That's I suggest you keep with the definitions and then we take these questions later.
That's okay. You just want to make a video out of this, I know you. Okay. So now let's go range expansion, right? Range expansion means that the IDR high is bigger is bigger than the previous IDR high, and the low is smaller than the previous IDR low, right? IDR high bigger than the previous, let's add this, ADR to ODR. So the IDR high is bigger than the previous IDR high, and the low is smaller than the previous low, IDR low. And contraction is exactly the other way around. IDR high is smaller and IDR low is bigger than the previous one. IDR low. Okay. Okay, very clear, easy. Coming to the next one, which is the upside plus and the downside plus. So the downside and the upside plus, right, expansion model is defined, let's take this. So the IDR low is bigger than the previous IDR high, smaller. The IDR low, I have to turn this around. The IDR high, let's do it like this to make it good. So the IDR high is higher than the previous IDR high, obviously. And the low is bigger than the previous IDR high. Okay? And the opposite. The previous, the IDR low is smaller than the previous IDR low. And the IDR low is smaller than the previous IDR low. Okay? ADR, ODR. So, because the question is coming up, when we look and when we study the models and we collect data, we have the following. We have RDR into ADR. We have ADR into ODR. And we have ODR into RDR. Okay? IDR high M7. Oh. Okay, let's check. That's okay, that's okay. So the previous IDR high, the IDR high has to be higher than the previous IDR high. Good. The IDR low has to be bigger than the previous IDR high. IDR low smaller than the previous IDR low. That's our low. And the IDR low, yeah, here it needs to be high. IDR smaller, yes. Hey, you see any mystics here, Maggie? Yes, Frozen Sky.
I'm checking. Yeah, it's looks good to me. Which one is the budget version?
Sorry?
Which one is the budget version of these models?
The budget version. I mean, like literally the budget version is the upside and the downside, right?
Yes, I agree.
So now that we have defined all the models, let's have a look at data for this, right? So I just have to remove something which is not supposed for your eyes. Let's remove this down here. Remove the filter here. So let's talk about the model's impact. And let's give you some understanding. Just because I give you general numbers now, right? That doesn't mean that the work is done for you guys, right? So, if you look at the chat right now, right? These are all the data for ES from 1st of 2008 until today, until Friday, 3rd of October, I think. Friday last week. What is the third one? No, it's Tuesday. I updated on Tuesday the data. So all of the data for the past 15 years, right? So it doesn't include the upside expansion X, but it's not important for now, right? And obviously, if we look at the statistical distribution, right, we see that there is a difference, obviously, between the ADR models, ODR models, and RDR models, right? So we see clearly distribution in the ADR, like almost 80%, 80% of all the ADR models in the past 15 years have been either upside expansion or downside expansion, right? As we can see, the normal upside and downside model is almost not existing in the ADR. That's why we can call it the budget model, like at least in the ADR, but we will see on the other stats also that the upside and the downside could be considered the budget model, right? At least in terms of probability, how often they occur on your charts, right? Then in the ADR, the other one, if we take the squeeze model together, right, we are sitting at almost 96% of all occurrences in the past 15 years since 1st of 2008. So we can say probability, like almost you can define what can happen in the ADR session down to 3 models, right? Upside, downside, and squeeze. Upside expansion, downside expansion, and squeeze. All the other models are completely non-relevant, in my opinion, statistically, right? In the ADR session, we can completely forget about it, right? And we also see that there is definitely a higher distribution towards the upside expansion model, right? Which is normal because, like, at the end of the day, since 1st January of 2008, we are in a bull market. So it's quite normal that the upside model is more distributed than the downside model, right? Just based on logical price movement we have seen in the past 15 years, right?
Yeah.
ADR in correlation with the previous RDR, right? Squeeze is equal to contraction, yes. So far everybody is following, right? Any unclear or something unclear till right now? All clear? Yeah, we are looking at data for ES. Yes. This is ES. Correct. So 80% of the time, ADR will have an upside expansion from prior ADR. Please look at the data I gave you. It's 46%, right? 80% is either an upside expansion model or a downside expansion model. So you can classify 80% probability into two variants of models, right? MasterPath, I don't understand your question. So MasterPath is asking for upside and downside and range expansion. What if one side is the same as the other? Is it upside, downside, or range? Can you give me a picture for that? Because I can't wrap my hand around this question.
I think it means if ADR is equal to ODR box. So like a very edge case.
Well, like, then we have a non-existing model, because like I think we are talking about like this to happen is happening maybe 0.01% of the time. The box is the same. It's almost impossible. Like, I don't have the data, but I'm very confident to say that this most likely has not happened more than twice in the last 15 years, if it even happened. Like equal levels for both. This model. Okay, MasterPath, we classify this. Let's change our definition for upside and downside and make it below. Let's make it equal, bigger or equal. It's actually an edge case, but I don't think we're hurting ourselves with taking this into the definition.
But in any case, the range expansion is always been the second box is bigger than the previous box, right?
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
you use this previous like normal traditional definition, this should answer the question as well.
Yeah, MasterPath, we just changed the definition. So the model you posted in the chart, let's add it to upside or downside. Okay. So if there are no further questions to this, let's switch to the ODR session, right? So the ODR session has almost the same distribution, but the difference here is that we see upside, downside expansion, and squeeze is more or less replaced by range expansion, right? So still upside expansion, downside expansion has by far the highest statistical distribution. But compared to the ODR session, to the ADR session, sorry, instead of a squeeze or contraction model, the probability for the range expansion is higher. And squeeze is almost not happening many times in the ODR session, right? Also, downside and upside model has a very low percentage compared to the other ones, right? That's clear? And more or less the same goes for the ADR model with range, with upside expansion, downside expansion, followed by range expansion, and then quite lower percentage for upside and downside, and squeeze almost never happens in the ADR session, right? Scroll down. This one is a bit unclear to me because it's not touching the 50 per found in minute. That's a squeeze model. Maximus?
Contraction. That's what we call it on the screen.
Yeah, it's the contraction model. Has nothing to do with the midline. But if you want to be going deeper into the data, you could classify where the squeeze model is located. So you could say squeeze model in the upper half of the previous RDR or squeeze model in the lower half, right? So you could define this like as a second parameter for your backtesting, right? You could say, okay, I'm interested where the squeeze or the contraction model is located, upper half or lower half of the RDR. You could do this, and you will see if it has any statistical correlation to it, right? Let me let me duplicate this one. Remove drawings, and let's put up my data here.
Yeah, M7 is saying that in backtesting he found that if it tends to be up on the upper part, it tends to go up, and he's saying like he did that, like define contraction up and down.
Yeah, it's fine. Everybody can do that. No problem. Where is my posting? Let's take this here. Copy image. And let's see if I can. Way too large. Copy. Come on, let me paste it. Just a second, guys. I'm trying to get the data into TradingView. I can't post it. Okay. Well, then we have to do it the other way around. No. Where is my graphics? Did I just delete everything? Ah. Ooh. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Makes sense. And screen. Got it. So does the new expansion model plus fall without upside expansion? Yes. Like right now, like if you look at my data, which I have given to you, this includes the upside expansion plus, right? I classify it like this, intact. Okay. Yes, that's my real profile pic. Sorry. What is the best method for using DR lens on days where we think there will be a squeeze and contraction? Forget about this for a second, please. It has nothing to do with DR lens in the first place, right? Who cares? Work harder. So again, the data I have shown you, like to keep on going, the data we are looking at are just classified on box. There's nothing price action in between or not. So right now, if you look at the data I have shown you are just like, there is no difference between a broken upside and a valid upside, right? So the next step, and so the next step afterwards, we will come to that, is then how to classify broken and valid model, right? But for now, let's stick to this, right? Because that's the database you have to build up, right? So, and let's see some interesting things you will discover then, right? So let's have a look at if the ADR model is an upside expansion model, how will this impact the ODR model, right? So let's look at this data now. So So what I have selected in my database now is I only select the upside expansion model. And then you see how the graphs, like the selection of an upside expansion model, impacts the ODR and even the RDR model, right? And also, of course, obviously the true or false data for RDR and ODR, right? So what we can see, if ADR model is an upside expansion model, right? So the percentage of upside expansion to be expected in the ODR goes slightly down, right? While the percentage of the downside expansion is going slightly up in this case, right? But I would say this variance is not so big, right? We should be aware of it, but like we are talking about 2 to 3% up and down. So that's not a very crucial data point, right? And all the other models like range expansion stays equally. Upside is a little bit higher, the percentage, downside a little bit higher, and the squeeze stays also the same, right? Can you also check the probability of a green box for ODR just to see if Prism works? It works, my friend. I don't need to check that. But it doesn't help you guys if my Prism works, right? My Prism works for such a long time, right?
What about yours, Reggie?
Yeah, how's your Prism, Reggie? How
I
is
think
your
he was trying to
database?
trick you M7 and showing something more, you know.
Yes, for sure.
Burn.
Okay, everybody understands now how this can help you. So now let's have a look. Let's have a look when we select a downside expansion model, how the data is changing there. So, and that's where the magic is happening, even at this stage, when we talk about the basic data, right? So if you look at the data now, something interesting is happening, right? So when we have a downside expansion model in the ADR, right? The number of upside expansion models in the ODR is increasing, which is like counterintuitive, right? Because like normally we would expect that if it's a downside expansion model, we would expect a downside model to be more likely in the ODR, right? But obviously what is happening, it's actually turning around. So the upside expansion model increases when there is an ADR downside model, right? And the downside or the probability that we will see a downside expansion model is decreasing, right? Range, upside, downside, and squeeze model more likely not changing the probability, right? And slightly, the ODR true percentage and the ODR false percentage is slightly changing, right? You need to label these somehow? What do you need to label? What do you mean by labeling?
Post I pinned most likely, but don't worry, guys. We're gonna fix it in post.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't look at these numbers. Like the point of this whole session is that you do this testing for yourself, right? These screenshots are just like rudimentary data which I give you, right, to make you understand what you're doing when you're doing the backtest, right? But like the task here is to do the model backtesting by yourself, right? It takes you, like if you go really back to 2008, it takes you a maximum of 70 hours, right? So that can be done in let's say 5 to 6 days, 7 days. But the point is not only collecting the data, but like when you do this backtesting, you're going to be so much smarter than you have been before, because you're going to train your eye. You will see so more in price action. It's like the value you're getting out of the data is great, yes, but the value you're getting going through all the models in the past, the value is, it can't even get compared, right? I mean, ask Santi how much it changed his understanding of price action. They posted an Excel for us to use, get the model data. M7 70 hours? No, for me to get this data, it takes me 5 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours. How long did it take for me to put it there? I would say 2 hours. Very sound, Aaron. So, is it a good idea to collect the color of the box? Obviously, yes, it's a good idea, right? So the more things you're collecting, because like when you start looking at the color box, for example, and then maybe note if it's a box which is bigger than 0.4 or smaller than 0.4, you're not only training the models, you're also training the pre-Goldfish understanding, right? Where is the start of the ADR model coming from?
RDR into ADR.
Previous RDR, look at the left side of my screen, RDR into ADR. So previous RDR into ADR.
So Jacob, we're saying if the ADR box is above the previous RDR, we call it start of an upside expansion.
That's just a way to collect data, right? It doesn't necessarily
like
matter
what,
for the models.
For the intro, okay.
Yeah.
Now we have to define like when we want to do it like statistically, right? We have to define all the rules for all the models, and somehow we have to define where is the ADR located compared to the RDR, right? So looking at the whole day, right? It's different than collecting the data. We first need to collect the data for each session, right? And use this data then to look at the complete model, which we normally do, which is ADR into RDR into RDR session, right? Okay. Questions so far? Everybody understands the value. So just like this small thing which I showed you, right? So that it like, and if you go back into the ADR session, for example, and you understand that it's more likely, right, that if you see a downside expansion model, the percentage of follow, like it's almost 45% when we have a downside expansion model in the ADR, there is a 45% that it becomes an upside expansion model, right? I mean, that's valuable information. Like we don't look at candles. It's just like information you're getting out of collecting those data, right? I hope everybody understands the value and understands what to do with it, right? For me, it takes 1.5 minutes to take data for all the 3 sessions in correlation. Yeah, 1.5 minutes, it's fine. We have in total, it's 3,000 sessions. So yeah, how much is that? It's 4,500 minutes. Let's see, 4,500 minutes. Yeah, 75 hours. Not so bad with my guessing. 1.5 minutes per session, and you would have 70 hours, you're done. That's not the whole day, it's just like per session, because it's in total 3,700 sessions. That includes ADR into ODR. Like we have like literally for every day 3. there a blank template available somewhere? Like I'm just thinking, I just had the idea because somebody asked that we maybe include this into metrics, right? But so far there is no. There is no template yet. Would be so helpful to have a template. Pretty sure students will come up with a template. But you know, I prefer if people use their own brain to think how to collect this data, because in my world and how I understand, it's so much more valuable if you use your own brain and you look for solutions, how to do it the best way. It gives you a much better understanding than using someone's template, right? But I do understand we will need some template at one point. But I'm always a friend to use my own hat and think how can I collect data for something, right? Instead of using a template.
Also because it's unconstrained, right? So
Yes.
if we give you a framework, it might be good to start, but maybe some other people who are creative might say, why don't I collect this other stat as well? And you might miss out on some of the things that you could be collecting if you're just sticking to, oh, what does the template tell you to collect? Whereas if you sit down and think, what is important to me? What would I like to know from this exercise? Then you start to make it relevant for you, for yourself, and maybe you come up with other things to collect in the meantime.
Hi M7, can we do a walkthrough of the backtest example? Yeah, we will do this, don't worry. Don't worry. So I like Cinnamon.
Panama.
I like, at the end of the day, you just have to think what data you want to calculate. So obviously date, day, then ADR confirmation, ADR box, like all the data. I think that's a very good template, right? With all the data you could potentially collect, right? It's very simple. You just lift like these headers and then you just write down, you go through, right? Don't use pen and paper because it's going to be hard to calculate things then, right? Filing cabinet full of pen and paper, stone tablet.
I mean, it's fine if you want to do 1 year just on paper to see and prime your brain and then do the proper exercise, collecting all the data you want to collect after gathering your thoughts with pen and paper. That also works, but obviously takes longer.
So now I have a question for your brains, right? So why do you think the ADR MID is so important? Do you think like goldfish and all of this stuff is just coming from these two lines? Because like I have sometimes the impression that people think that it's just these lines, but why do you think goldfish and the 0.5 level is important, guys? Why do you think we are having so much, or we are looking so much at like why the 0.5, the mid-level of the IDR becomes important? And what has this to do with the M7 box? I'm reverting a little bit back and calling the things how they are literally called. So I'm leaving away our nice funny names like goldfish and all of this stuff. So why do you think the 0.5 retracement and the M7 box is so important to find good entries? And by that, that's why it's also very important for our models. What do you think why is that? Is it the average price? Tied to the models, volume, Algo makes calculations. So what do you think, right? Like that's now, like I'm pretty sure people who have done a lot of backtest can tell me the answer to my question. And people who haven't done enough backtesting yet will most likely not be able to give me, I mean, they can guess it, right? But like, what do you think? How many times, or what is the percentage where the retracement before the high or the low of the session in the RDR session goes below 0.5 before we see the high? I'm saying it again, and I'm naming it, like I'm spelling the question again. So, how high is the percentage of the max retracement before the high or the low of the session is smaller than 0.5? What would you guess? 3-minute Discord. Yo, go home. Yoho, minus 35, maximum 80, Quantum 80, 45, Frosty 80, over 70, 75, 75.
Wait, what is it that it's above the 0.5 or
Yes.
less than 0?
Above.
Mm-hmm.
What's your guess, Maggie?
I would say 70.
70? Luis?
70.
High percentage, yeah.
High
70,
percentage?
even more maybe, yeah.
But just to visualize what we are talking about and what my question is. So we have, that's our box, right? Put some price in here. Always forget where it is. Here. So we have this price action, and then we have our confirmation. Then we have a retracement, and then we see the high of the session, right? So how many times this is true? The percentage that this retracement before we see the high, obviously in this case the high of the session, is not going below 50%. Let's say it 88, 30%, deeper than, missed the question, low.
84.
Huh?
Counting from the lens.
You should not cheat. $95 over 80. 75 or higher, 70, 83, 84. Okay, so everybody who has below 80%, why would you give me this answer? Because you could have done the cheat Mege was using, which is very simple. Just use the lens data, right? It's all there, right? So if you have answered below 80%, right? You did not make the connection between DLN's data and the question I asked, right? So the real percentage is drum roll for the ADR session, for the RDR session, sorry. That's the percentage, guys. Ba-dum-bum. Whoever did this, that's cool. So M7 retracement is similar to a retracement of the high or low session, just different calculation, but same meaning at the end of the day, right? Yeah, M7 retracement is equal to a high or low of the session. It's just different calculated with some other parameters, but it has the same meaning. It means the retracement before we see the high or the low. So with that high of a percentage, right? That's why the mid of every session becomes so important, right? Because just simply the moment when price is dipping below the 0.5 level, right? Guessing the data is for weeks, yes, that's for weeks. The moment that price is dipping below, right? We are in a lower area, right? So it's very important to understand the meaning of this data. So if we go lower, right, then obviously the percentage will increase, right? If we use now, for example, if I calculate the same data now for, let's say, 0.7, right? Where is it? Max retracement. And 0.5. So if I change the numbers quickly to 0.7 minus 0.7, just a second. 7. Let's recalculate this for a second. Change it here. One time drum roll, please. So if we go to 0.7, right, the probability is increasing by 5%, right? This is for true and false days, Trident, because for the retracement before the high or the low of the session, we don't care if it's a true or a false day. Make sense to everyone? Percentage will increase if it's a true or false day and slightly decrease if it's a false day, right? So, but now I want you to do the understanding question, right? So obviously we know the lower we go, right? The lower we go, obviously based on the data, what we're having, obviously it's increasing. But think about it. So 85%, right? 85, yes, we can factor time in. That's like let's not talk about time. Like let's focus on the understanding of what I'm telling you here, right? So 85% of the times, right? The retracement before we see a high or low, and that's the only interesting for us, because if we want to trade, right, we want to enter in the retracement before the high or the low of the session is coming, right? We are not really necessarily interested in the max retracement, because the max retracement number could be after we see the high, right? So in an optimal world, we want to enter trades in the max retracement before the high or the low of the session, right? So it means we want to enter there and we want to get out at the high or the low of the session. Whatever happens afterwards, if there is a max retracement coming or even a false days, it doesn't matter for us trading wise, right? So that's very important. But now think about what it does for your probability. So if you know 85% of all the retracements are until the midpoint, right? That means everything which comes later is only a small percentage left, right? So we could say, right, that the probability is way higher than we will see the retracement before the 0.5, then the probability that we will see the retracement happening below 0.5. And again, like I'm repeating it, the probability that our retracement before the higher low of the session, right, is before 0.5 is 80.5%, right? The probability that you will see a lower retracement below 0.5 is only 15%. But the cumulated probability is almost 100% in the range. You understand? Or is that too complicated? So now the big understanding question is, where do you want to preferably enter? In which area? Before 0.5 or after 0.5? Sari, we don't care about the true day.
Because even if it's false, you still get the high before it's false, right?
Yes.
Or the low.
Exactly. Good. So do we understand now why the mid is very important for our models? Does it make sense now? And do we understand now why Goldfish is working in the first place? Because now think, where is the open price located and where is the closing price, which forms our M7 box? Where is it located? Is it located inside the box or outside? It depends on nothing, Giano. That depends on nothing. Yes, correct answer. So our close and open line of the box will be always located in nine. No, it can't be outside the box. How it's possible? It can't be outside. Inside by definition, right? The open and the close can never be outside of the box. So now if you would go back and you do your backtesting what you did for Goldfish, right? If you would go back and test all your Goldfish trades now, and you will put what I just explained to you into the picture, and see that when the return inside the M7 box is happening above the 0.5 level, right? And you make this part of your rules, you're gonna see most likely what? Yeah, Gianni, M7 box is the same because the M7 box contains the open and the close, or is... No, I'm talking about the M7 box, guys. The question was not if the M7 box is at the midpoint. That was not the question. My brain just went on holiday. Spartacus, okay. I think we need a visual example. Okay, so let's make it visual for a second, right? So what I was saying is, let's say That would be our open price. And that would be our closing price. Right? And that, let's make the midline blue. So, and that is our M7 box, right? That's our M7 box. Blue, blue, and let's make so when we talk about goldfish, the normal goldfish, right, is confirmation. Let's assume that's our confirmation here, right? Return into the M7 box, wait for getting out of the M7 box, and then enter, right? Yes, the size of the box becomes, we are talking about normal goldfish. We're not even talking about pre for now. So visualized makes more sense to you. And the question from me was, what do you think will happen if you go over all your goldfish trades and you factor in the data, so the 85% of not breaking below 0.5 level, right? What would happen if you classify, you say, okay, you classify your goldfish backtests into above the midline and below the midline? Which one do you think has the higher win rate? And now, exactly. So it will most likely increase, right? And it's just like, it has to increase. Are you sure about that? Now I'm playing a little bit carousel with you. Does it really has to increase, guys? %85%. This area, and this area has 14%. Again, does it really increase your win rate? How would you come to this conclusion? Retracement data for everyone. Last time I'll answer this question. Retracement data are always calculated on high or low, so it doesn't matter which body or wick. It's always the low, which means wicks. So Trinity is saying the likelihood of going below 0.5 is lower. So what this data means, right? Out of 1,000 trades, right? $850 trades will happen or have the retracement below here, right? And 15 of 140 trades will be here, right? So can we say with 100%, do you really think that anything changes here in the win rate? Just based on what I just told you, does the win rate change? Yes, guys, thank you very much. So everybody who thinks the win rate is changing, based on the data we have so far, the win rate, most likely, no, it depends, not on the TP. Both trades have the same TP, right? Exactly. So the win rate most likely stays the same, but you have less trades. But what does it mean for stop levels? So what will change your win rate? It's not where the retracement is going, but the win rate will change when you change your stop level. And what would be the best stop level here? Yes, exactly. Exactly. So just because this event going below 0.5 is happening in a less frequent way than above, right? It doesn't mean that the win rate will be different, right? Because technically the data we are collecting, you will always see a new high, right? So, and you will get only, and that's the point, I have the number, but that's the point. If you test your goldfish entries, right? You will see, we don't know based on the frequency distribution, we don't know if these are good winning trades or if we have even, it could be potentially that we have better winning trades in this level. Let's say you would define the 0.5 as our take profit level, no matter where we enter, here or here, right? It could be potentially that the win rate of this is higher than the win rate of this, right? So now we are coming to the next stop, right? Dr. Stacks, exactly. So now we are coming to the next point, right? So now we are looking at the color, right? In this case, what I drew here, this is a red box, right? This box would be red. Can I make this red? Yeah. So my example here, opening is up here, close is here. So the probability for price to go up is lower than to price to go down. And this is something equal, which I say 45 minutes until we see a confirmation, right? So that's how you can stack probabilities. But I want everyone to understand now what makes a difference, because everybody thinks goldfish or M7 box is just like, yeah, you're just looking at a candle what breaks. I mean, that's working because it's an easy system, but M7 box entries have so much more probability stacked on them. And even though in the first look it's just like, oh yeah, we have a box, nice lines, M7 drew them for us, and we just wait for a candle to close. I think the next step in understanding and backtesting for you is what it really says, right? For you, for most of you, it's just like a box, 2 lines we have been drawn, right? But as you can see, this is all data backed up, right? And it's functioning because of the data, not of magical lines, right? So, and the more you understand why it's functioning, what we just did here, the easier it is to play your roles around it, right? So even Goldfish simple rules can have much better defined rules, right? So now, after the quick excursion over here, we have a look, so how we can use the model, right? So when do we know, right? When do we know, let's say we are taking the example what we had before, we are saying we have a downside expansion model, right? We have a downside expansion model in the ADR. I'll post the data again that you don't have to scroll. So when we have a downside expansion model, we know with 45% probability, right, we can see an upside expansion model. And with 30% probability, we can see a downside expansion model. So now, what can we do based on our first candle? So the moment when the first candle, so the 4 o'clock candle, the 3 o'clock candle in the ODR is printing, right? If we collect this data for the models, we can already maybe rule out some models. We can take them out of the occasion because the opening price, right? Because the opening price where it's located will give us an idea what the model can be. Because if you look at our models again, if the opening price, or like if the box is opening below somewhere or below the midline, right? We already have the information that certain models can't be possible anymore, right? And when you know that certain models are not possible, let's say, just an example, we will go through an example like on Unreal chart, but I really want to think. So let's say you have a downside expansion model, and then you will see that the opening price of the ODR session, so the first candle of the ODR session, right? It's opening above the midpoint of the ADR session, right? So what you can say then? So let's take the model here. So the opening price, the first candle, I'll make it visual for you. So the first candle is opening here, above the midpoint. Which model can't it be anymore? If the opening is here, right? The first candle at 3 o'clock is here. It can't be a downside expansion, right? So now if we go back to our data, right? What we can do is Xing out downside because it can't be a downside expansion model anymore. So now, and that's the first candle of the ODR session, right? So which model has the highest probability to happen now? Exactly, because we are out of the statistic, we are taking away the downside expansion model because it's not possible based on the location of the first candle, right? So that leaves only upside expansion or range expansion, right? So when do we know that it can't be an upside expansion model anymore? When do we know that with the opening here, it can't be an upside expansion model anymore? Which is our level? We know if price goes below this level. Exactly. Exactly. Good job, guys. Good job. So that means we not only can rule out one model, we can also define a level where the range expansion model or like where the upside expansion model is not possible. So it literally brings us down with the data we are collecting here that the most likelihood is that we will see an upside expansion model. And that gives you the opportunity, right, to understand with a very high probability what price will most likely do, right? I hope you understand the power of what I'm telling you here, right? And again, this is just model, right?
Crazy statistical advantage.
So again, don't tunnel on this, right? Like there's much more. Let's say you have volume below this level. Like then you can turn on the other confluences which we are talking about, right? So you can blend in everything, and that brings you to such a crazy amount of probability and edge for your trade placement and understanding what price will do, right? If you know this and you understand that, like you will be able, when the box starts to form, already to say, okay, if we break this level, I expect that. If we don't break this level, I expect that in 90% of the time, right? Except it's a completely screwed up model, right? But 90% of the time you will get a good understanding what to expect before the box is even forming, right? And then obviously we can go one step further. Like it can be calculated what the average size of a box in the RDR and the ODR, etc. is, right? So technically in your data you can collect which model, what is the average size, what is the mean in standard deviations, right, of the box size compared to the ADR size or the ODR size. So when you have this data, you can not only know where to enter and where to put your stop, you're also getting a very early target, right? Going forward in the thinking process, once you understand that, then you can use the box to define the probability of a confirmation is happening into this direction. And then you use the confirmation candle high average to have a new target. And once the confirmation is there, you can use the probability how many times 0.5 is reached for another target. Information overload, love it. Imagine finding a place like Peter, yeah? Imagine being a Peter. We have a saying in German. I don't know if it's translated makes sense. But for those who are German, der hat sich mal richtig ins Knie gefickt. And I'm not gonna translate it because it's a little bit naughty. But the German guys understand. Peter hat sich mal richtig ins eigene Knie gefickt. Aber so. No posting this on Twitter. No Indian, please. So again, I'm taking you step by step. Why is it important? First of all, again, we are coming back to where we started this session, right? Model understanding in the first place, right, is to collect the data and to understand the data, right? Like I said, it takes me 2 hours to generate this data. But like Santi will confirm and vouch for what I'm saying here. Doing the test by himself, doing this work he did by himself, changed his understanding of price by 100%, right? And that's what I want to have for everyone. Obviously, this data will be released and you can use it later on, right? But nothing, even my best Prism, whatever I have on data, even the best data, will be not as good as the best data combined with the knowledge and the neural pathways in your brain, right?
Yep.
M7 box is not the same like IDR box. No. And everybody is looking at something and seeing this crazy prediction, but these predictions are based on numbers, right? But it's not like I can give you those numbers, right? But the understanding of what is coming and ruling out things and understanding where is the location of a candle and all of this stuff, right? This is like, if you do the model backtest, it's gonna charge your success and your understanding and your way how you see price forever. It's gonna change it, right? And that's what happened to Santi, right? The same. So far, everybody thought M7 box entries are just M7 box entries. And today, I gave you the explanation why it's working, right? It's not just like two lines drawn in the middle of somewhere, but this is all data related, right? Related, sorry.
Yeah, and something else as well, M7. Not
Yeah,
only is
talk,
important.
I'm gonna get myself a espresso, but I'm listening.
Okay. No worries. Not only is important for you guys to build those neural pathways by watching, but for executing as well. One thing is seeing something happen, and I'm sure a lot of you guys might relate in trading, right? Sometimes you see and you know what's going to happen, but you don't actually execute, right? You back test, so you see it over and over again, so you have the confidence to execute, right? Because you might have the numbers and the data, and you know what's going to happen, but because you haven't back tested, you are not able to execute in live trading, right? So that's why there's no way around doing the work, guys. And to climb the stages of mastery, you need to put in the work, right? It's not like if you don't master your emotions, your mind, and you don't back test, you can have the best data in the world, but you're not going to be successful, right? So I think that's important to emphasize, right? Doing the work, back testing, and seeing it for yourself.
And for the people who were watching the very old classic backtest and chill many months ago, how many times was the 0.5 line mentioned in backtesting, or in those streaming? It's always I remember like yesterday it was always talking about the rejection to the mid line, rejection to the DR, rejection to the IDR. Oh, watch this rejection to the close price of the box, and this was also mentioned, in the first few YouTube videos, but it was almost like Easter egg there, which, some people picked up and most people didn't.
Just random stuff, right, Mega? Random. Like the market.
But nothing is better than going back to your chart, understand what you're looking at, right? Like I received during the onboarding session, I received so many questions on like very nuanced edge cases on the models. They ask me, oh, so how do we look at this? What happens when this happens on the upside expansion? And the best answer really is, have you looked at 100 examples of this happening, and what are your insights after having watched 100 examples of this instance happening? That's the best thing you can do for your brain, for your understanding, for your learning and development, rather than asking a question, which is a very legit question, right? But then relying on someone else to tell you the answer, right? The answer will stick with you so much more if you find your own question when you have your question.
Yep. That's completely true. Is theoretical knowledge, right? The knowledge that you receive, like you're reading a book, right? But then you actually apply it in real life, right? And yeah, I think that's so good, Mega, because knowledge without execution is meaningless in anything in life, right? It's like if you're asking M7, tell us all the secrets, all this stuff, whatever. Tell us all of the the important stuff. But then if you don't backtest, it is meaningless for you. So yeah, that's it. Do it for yourself, guys.
And Nadim is asking if Santi can share the spreadsheet that he used to build the backtest. But as we said earlier, Nadim, we're gonna probably make a template, or some students are gonna make a template. But it's important that you come up with your own fields, right? We showed you all the data points that you could possibly collect. Well, not all of them, but try to use your imagination or your try to
Understanding.
look at the charts. Your
Not
understanding.
imagination. Try to come to the understanding why
Yes,
this is
yes.
important, because that's going to
Yes.
create the neural pathways, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Put
You know,
the data
like-
together, you need to understand it, right?
For our US guys, because I was sheltering them in the beginning with my Thanksgiving, right? Like, let's make a baseball example, right? You can watch a professional, is it called a pitcher? Or like a batter? Like, who is the one swinging the bat?
Better.
The batter?
I think so.
No idea.
US guys, help me out. The batter, right. So you can watch the guy swinging and swinging over, right? And you will learn nothing, right? You will not learn how to swing and to hit the ball and make a home run, right? So what you have to do is step up there and swing for yourself. That's the only way you can become better, from watching the guy and listening to what he's explaining to you, right? You never will be a better batter, right? You need to step up to the plate, and you're gonna have to swing and hit the ball for yourself, or try in the beginning, right? A better
Yeah.
batter. Yes, exactly. A better batter, right? So that's why it's so important. I mean, like I said, you know, all the knowledge I'm giving you here, right? It's an easy task for me, right? To make a prism just spitting out the data in real time, telling you do this, do that, right? But again, I remind you on why I came up in the first place. Is because I want to make people successful traders, right? And the way of programming something for you, which is spitting out whatever you should do, right? That's not the way I make you a warrior, right? And like so
It's like
many,
giving you crack cocaine, right? You want
Yes.
to become independent.
yes. So the way you become warriors, and that's super important for me, because I will not do this for eternity here, right? I make you warriors so that you later on can build warriors, right? So if I just give you everything pre-cooked and preheated, right, you're not going to understand it, right? And I want you to
Guys,
understand
microwave
it.
is shit.
Microwave. Can we make a t-shirt? What t-shirt? Microwave is shit.
I think the academy has so many t-shirts to make, right? So many.
Technically, yeah. One day we will do, maybe, when we will have the time. But for X models, we can't know the ADR model. I don't understand the question, Elisabeth. No, you don't have to learn how it work. Okay, so there's one comment. Now I have to waste time learning how to work Excel instead of backtesting. No, it's actually the complete opposite. You don't have to learn how to use Excel, right? All you have to do is write down what you see in your chart, right? There is no skill needed to, like, all you have to do, you make a heading, day, date, model RDR, model ODR, and so on and so forth, right? So you don't have to learn Excel. I don't think that's the right understanding, because what you're going to learn, it's better than the backtesting, because you learn models because you're looking at price. You're not looking at Excel, right? The Excel is just a tool, right? You can technically do this with a pen and a paper, right? It has the same effect. But like, if you're already doing the work, it's better to write it in an Excel, because later on you can ask a student, or later when we will bring you like a template, you just convert your data into the Excel, right? But like, the effect is the one looking at price and seeing the models and writing it down, right? So there is a saying, right? If you want to fill your brain, read, right? So what we are doing here, right, is filling our brain with watching thousands of models and how they turn out, right? And if you want to empty your brain, the saying goes forward, you want to write down, right? So you watching the stuff and you're filling your brain, and then you empty your brain because you're writing it down, right? But then he has to learn how to use pen and paper. I don't think so. Don't be rude. You know, the point is, and you should know me by now, I will give you all the tools, I will give you this data, right? But for me, it's important that you do the task, right? I want you to step up on the plate, take your baseball bat, and start swinging. That's what I want you to do, right? It's not necessarily what baseball bat you're using, right? The baseball bat is not necessary for you to become a better batter, right? I mean, obviously, I can't force anyone to do it. Like, you can just sit down, wait till the data is coming in Prism, and then use the data. It's fine, right? But the only thing I can do, I can speak out a highly, highly important recommendation to do it by yourself, right? Because it's going to speed up your process, right? Imagine it like a supercharge for your price understanding, right? Obviously, you can say, I don't need to be supercharged. It's fine. I'm waiting for the data to come, right? But like, doing this exercise will make a huge difference in how you see price. Could potentially lead to the same, like what Santi is doing, like predicting transition from one session to the other session into the box of the next session with a high probability, right? Of course, Ghost, Prism, Drive, all this stuff, it will be coming, but just me not doing 6 live sessions a week, that will end at some point. I can promise that. Everything else gonna stay for eternity as long we don't see anything stupid happening in the world. The Academy and everything here will stay for eternity, right? Just maybe there will be a transition where I retire as a teacher and just pop in once a week to say hello, right? But you guys will become the teacher. Some of you will become teachers in the academy in the future, right? That's the whole goal, right? Nothing will go away. As long as it's in my power, nothing will go away.
But still good to understand how to use the data, collect your data, and don't wait for in the future to Prism to tell you everything how to trade, right? That's not the expectation we have of you. The expectation is that you will be able to teach someone else how to read the data because you fully understand how to do this yourself. And please don't sell Discord Telegram groups and that kind of stuff. Please. Be a good person.
NJ, M7, do you have a number? Billions after this you will retire? Listen, it's not about money. If I want to make billions, I would for sure not run the academy. That costs me too much time and too much money, to be honest with you.
That's for sure.
That I can tell you. So this is not a dollar amount. I want to have 10,000 warriors, right? So once this number is reached, or like most likely to be reached, I'm gonna be sailing around the world, but I will be not gone. It's just like I will definitely spend less time, right?
Doing live streams from the yacht, right?
Yeah. Like we will have fun together, but like it will just change that listen guys, I'm doing right now 6 live streams, and as you see, I never looked at any time. Normally I would have to do 1 hour, right? I don't have to come to the performance session because I have Luis for that, right? I don't need to do this. Onboarding session, I'm always tapping in. I'm in every single session. On top of it, I'm doing approximately 25 one-on-ones every week, right? So like my just streaming and one-on-ones is what normal persons in a normal job work per week, right? That doesn't include anything doing Prism, thinking about how I can explain you thing. That's not including my own trading. That includes nothing, right? So that's
Your
it.
workouts.
My workouts, nothing, right?
Please.
So, okay. If there are like no more understanding questions, shall we go through some examples, huh? I think that's enough information for now. So we're gonna continue next Monday because I wanna keep this MSc and PhD related these informations for now. So we can continue next week Monday, and then we will have a look into broken models or valid models, right? So what do we pick? Oh, that's Peter. Hello, Peter. How are you doing? Are you trading today, Peter? Let's turn the volume profile off. So let's start. Let's define just very simple. So that's CL today, right? So in this case, that's the RDR session. So what case is the ADR? What model is the ADR? What is today's ADR model? Okay, let's be precise. Yes. Upside X plus, right? So now, let's check the data for that. So in my data, we just take a normal upside expansion model because it includes the plus, right? So that's the data we have now for CL, right? I have to switch. We're using ES data, but it doesn't matter, right? Okay. So it's an upside expansion model. So what can we know while we are in the ADR session, right? So what are we expecting the ODR to be? What are our possibilities? what are our possibilities, what model we will see in the ODR session today. So correct. So the possibilities are upside expansion, downside expansion, and then far less likely a range expansion, right? That's the knowledge we have gathered from, yes. So because it was an upside expansion model, if you look at the data again, what is slightly increasing compared to if we don't select the ADR model? So which model is slightly decreasing and which model is slightly increasing the probability? So the likelihood of the upside expansion model is slightly decreasing, and the downside model is slightly increasing the probability. Nika, correct. Downside X is a little bit increasing and the upside is a little bit decreasing. Correct, Red Avocado. Tracy, you don't understand that? No, let's not look at the open right now, right? So look at the data. So in the background, for everyone in the background, you see how normally the data is distributed, right? So, and then because we select the upside expansion model, right, in the background you see all data and then with our selection. So you can see that the upside expansion model is going a little bit lower, which was before 41%, right? And the downside expansion model was before, like, let's say 32% and it's increasing now, right? So now we look back at our chart, right? And we look at the first candle of the ODR, right? So where the first candle, this candle here, where is it opening? The first candle of the ODR today, where is it opening? And based on this candle, which model can't be possible anymore? Yes, correct. It's opening below the midpoint of the ADR. So it can't be an upside extension model anymore. So what we can do now to visualize it for those guys who are visualizers, right? We can do this. Based on that, it can't be an upside expansion model anymore, based on the first candle of our box, right? So that's our 0.5 line from the ADR. Let me draw it. Be precise here. Give it a nice color and fat. Okay. Please, Gladwell. ESP, please. You're sometimes driving me nuts. Ouch. I love you, but like sometimes you're really driving me nuts, honestly. Sometimes, really. I will explain it. Don't worry. It's meant in a good way, ESP. For you, I'll have, it's not nobody cares. For you, the sentence nobody cares, work harder, right? For you, the following counts. Nobody cares. Macro is more important than micro. Nobody cares. Macro is more important than micro. Nobody cares. Macro is more important than micro.
Nobody cares. Zoom out a bit.
So now I have a nice statement here. Somebody is saying almost 60% probability to get a downside expansion model. Is it? What would you say? Is the statement correct? Now, with the data and the first candle what we have, is the statement correct? We have a 60% probability to get a downside expansion model. $34 is the wrong answer. No. So the easy way to calculate this, just take your downside expansion model percentage, which in this case is 35, and then take together the other models. So the other models are 11. Let's make it easy. 11 plus 8, 19, plus 6, 25, plus 2, 27, right? So the answer is correct. It's most likely plus minus 66% probability for a downside expansion model, right? So just imagine you remove the upside expansion probability and just then recalculate. So all the models become 100%, right? So 66% is most likely the right answer, approximately, right? We don't have to go detailed calculation, but I want everybody to understand it. 66% appropriate. Okay? So now we go to the next step on our chart, right? So we know now with 66%, right? With 66% probability, right? Where do we know that it can't be a downside expansion model anymore? What condition has to happen that we know it can't be a downside expansion model? Above 0.5 close. So what do we have on hand now? What two things we have right now when we switch our brain to trading? We have an entry. In which direction? We have an entry possibility for a short, and we have a stop level, right? Yeah, we wouldn't know that's a red box at this point. We would be like, visually, we would be here right now. That's what we see. We don't know what the box will be. That's the only thing we will see visually, right? Okay, so we don't know the box at this point. Please, macro is more important than micro. I still see people thinking about the 66%, right? So how, like, do I really want to explain it? Okay, I explain it how I came to my 66%. And that's just a rough estimate, right? So this one is x'd out, so I do plus that, plus that, plus that. That equals 19, 25, 27%. I'll post a graphic in a second. So I just compare, the other models are 27 and the ODR model is 34 and plus minus, like it was just like a very rough approximation, right? Okay, so don't get hung up there. Like, you know, sometimes macro is more important than micro because you can just use your eyes and you obviously see that the downside expansion model has a way higher probability than all the other ones, right? Just look at the chart, right? Yeah, like squeeze model is also out of the occasion, right? But like, please don't get hang up in the micro. Just use your eyes. In this case, it's very simple. Use your eyes and you can see downside expansion has the highest probability, right? Just like that is visually, that can be visually seen that downside expansion model has the highest probability, right? We don't need to stick to the exactly calculation because like each model has, like, you can't just combine the other models, you have to calculate it differently, but that's not so important right now, okay? So, now people are already asking me for targets, right? Is that really important for us right now? Because like targets, let's leave target away for a second, right? I can give you a target. You could look for unfilled volume imbalances, for example. So what do we have here? We have two volume imbalances which are not filled. I say don't talk about it, and I keep on talking about it. Great M7. Just do what you say, right? I'd just like to. Hi. That's a big volume imbalance. So 2 volume imbalances which can become targets, right? Potentially. Gap, lower edge of the gap could be something, right? Later on, data for average box size, for example, could be a target, right? And
How
so on and so
about-
forth. Wait.
How about confirmation? Take your R's and then you have some R's in the bank if you want to.
Wait for a
trade the
confirmation. Wait till the box end. The box is red, so you know you have a 70% probability for confirmation. And data I already gave that the confirmation candle is reaching 0.2. So I guess 0.2. Let's have a check. If it reaches 0.2 in average, look at that. Like almost it would be not random, right?
Almost.
Almost. Almost aligning also with the stupid volume imbalance over here, right? Damn. Okay, but like, let's forget about this. It's not a question about goals here, right? We are looking at how to use the model and what we can do out of it, right? Okay, so that's an edge, right? So now tell me what information you are gathering, right? Now tell me what, like let's go to this candle now. So what do you know when this candle is closing? Red box? No. It can't, like squeeze model, it can't be anyway because it's not inside the RDR anymore. Red box more likely? No. Hey, guys, we are making model. No contraction. It anyway can't be a contraction. Like it can't be a contraction, but it can't be an upside anymore, right?
The budget one.
It can't be the budget version anymore, like Voldemort, right?
Kinda upside. Kinda made.
So it takes away another model which it could be, which increases the model chance or the probability for downside expansion even more, right? Voldemort up is out. Correct answer, right? Correct. So for your collection of data, right? We are doing same, like we give an example what data to collect and how to use the data when you have the data, right? So now what data we want to calculate. So obviously the ADR model is what here, guys? We already defined upside extension plus, right? So it can't be a squeeze model anymore, right? So we collect data. This ADR session was an upside extension plus, right? So what data can you also collect, right? So max extension you can calculate like you can collect this data. It was an upside expansion plus, long confirmation with standard or like high max extension 1.6, right? max standard deviation, long, short, and if it's a true or a false day. Correct? So let's write this down for everyone. Model max SD extension true, like long or short confirmation, and true or false. I feel like the new kid at school that walked into the wrong class. I feel you, Craig. Like, as a newcomer, like, being in this session might be a little bit crazy in the first place.
I think it's from today, literally.
Okay. So what else? Like true or false? So now we can collect the data, green box. So M7 box positive or negative. And then M7 box size. Oh yeah. M7 box smaller, 0.4 or bigger. Right? Idea box size. How do you want to collect this data? Because it's related to points, so you can't. Right? That will skew up your data because you're like, obviously, I mean in CLS, but in ES it will skew your data because like 10 years ago we had like 2000, for example. So you need to collect it in reference to something. So don't collect the big, like the data, the box size is only related to, it's interesting when you can relate it to something, right? Okay. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, sorry, Gianni, 0.5, yes. .5, guys, sorry, my bad. Let me correct it. And actually, yes. Vasily, thank you. So for the ODR model, we can collect the same data, right? So let's move on to the last session of the day, right? Vera, you can do this. That will not make or break something. It's actually always good to get narrowed down, right? So it's fine if you collect the complete size instead of just below or above. Always good. So what is our last session now? What is the ARIA session for a model? Upside, correct. Here we go. Upside. Why? Because it's above or below, in this case, the 0.5 line, right? Yeah, Voldemort up. So you can collect the same data you're collecting for ADR. I'm not putting this on the screen here. So the data you're collecting is for each session. So now the last thing we have to look is the overall model, right? So how would you see the overall model of today? Correct. So our overall model is a broken downside model. A failed downside, right? And at what point, in which session, it's turning into a failed model? In which time or which session, which DR session it turns into a failed downside model? ODR, correct. ODR. ODR. Johnny, no, it's the ODR. Correct. So at this point, it turns into, with the confirmation here, it turns into a failed model. $6.25, correct. Correct, $6.25 candle. Here's we are going step by step. We are not looking at transition yet, right? So for now, we are not looking at what is happening in between. We talk about this next Monday, right? Can we compare ARIA and say it's range expansion for those? Collect the data and see if there is something 777. So now let's have a look at the data, right? So we had an upside expansion model and we have a downside expansion model. So look at this, right? So now I have selected upside expansion and downside expansion, right? So these data are now filtered. So again, the data you're looking at now tells you what models are likely if you have an upside expansion model in the ADR session into a downside expansion model. And below, when you look at the ADR model data, that's how the data is changing, right? So now we are looking at our opening candle of the RDR. So what do we know already when we see the opening candle of the ODR? Be precise, downside X. Be precise, please, guys. No downside expansion, right? So correct, it can't be a downside expansion model anymore, right? So this is out of the occasion, right? So it can be only an upside expansion, a range expansion, or a downside. So the only way to become a downside model, because what it has to do to become an upside expansion model, a range expansion, it has to go above the high of the ODR session, right? Else, it can't be a range expansion, right? August, I tried to put the screenshots in there, but unfortunately the pictures are too big to copy them into TradingView. Sari breaks down 0.5. What do you mean with that? We are looking at only the opening candle. So we are at this candle right here, right now, what we are looking at. What information are we getting out of the first candle of the box, this candle here? So what model is also very unlikely to happen? What model is also very unlikely to happen? Squeeze model has a percentage of 0.8. So I think we can rule this out also, right? A 99.2% probability that it can't be a squeeze, I actually rule this out, right? Yeah, I can do this. So for those, make it easy. I don't need this one. So this is our first candle of the box, right? So it can't be a downside expansion anymore, right? Look closer. Can it be a downside model, guys? Can it be a downside model? Downside, George? Yes. Are you sure? Can it be, this is our first candle. Can it be a downside? Let's go back. Downside model looks like this, right? Downside model looks like this. No, it has nothing to do with ODR. We are just looking at the first candle. The right answer, it can't be a downside model neither, because that's our high of the IDR session here. Right? So look where the candle is. It's above, right? It's not equal, it's above. Brian at Forex, no, it's above the 0.5. That's only for downside expansion, right? But it can't be neither a downside, the budget model, which Make said. So let's update now and look what we have left. So we are ruling out the squeeze model just based on numbers, right? We can't have a downside expansion anymore, and we can't have a downside, right? So that leaves us with either upside expansion, normal upside, or range expansion. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, contraction can't be also for that one, right? Correct. So now, I'm sorry, I'm speeding a little bit ahead, but that makes me horny, right? So now we turn on our volume, right? Now we turn on our volume. And we take our volume mode here. So what do we want? Where we have, what direction has the highest probability based on what we just posted here? Which direction has the highest probability for what we have on data so far? Let's be precise. Upside has a way higher probability. And even if it's turning into a range model, right? It would mean just like a dip maybe below the ODR, right? And then still going up, right? Correct. 77% upside, right? So what do we want to trade now? Which direction we want to focus on? Long. Okay, so if we are smart traders and probability traders, right? So what information do we have, right? Where do we, so we have to still figure it, like the probability that we see an upside expansion, so are not breaking the 0.5 level is higher, but there's still the possibility that we will go and make a normal upside expansion. So if we just turn on volume in this case, right? We could take a trade at any point right now with stop below the volume mode, for example, right? Let's see if we have anything else. Like we could turn our multi-time frame on, and what do we see, right? This is range limiter is exactly matching up with volume, right? I don't need RDR volume right now. Because for us, at this moment, I don't need the RDR volume. I'm interested in this one, right? So look here, range limiter exactly matching with this one. Look where our high was going, right? So we can look at the multi-time frame, right? So it's also around our volume mode, right? So we can take two trades if we want to. We can say we can work with the 0.5 level. Let me turn everything off again. We can work with the 0.5 level to have a good risk-reward ratio. If it breaks below that, we could use this, right? Everybody's following, right? So let's see how it plays out. By magic, right? Super, super random, right? Super random stuff happening randomly, right?
Crazy random.
Crazy random. And you know, goldfish is just two lines in the chart. So it doesn't matter. When you take here the trade, like we have seen this, you take the trade here with the opening of this candle, right? Below 0.5 level, you get a break-even trade. Price comes down here, you take another trade. Take whatever you want, your 2, 3, 5 R, right? And that's it, right? Okay. What do we also know? And that's like now, like, please take everything together, right? So now when we look at the overall model, we know it's a broken downside based on the price action here, right? And the break here, we will expect trumpet. Like, what do we say when we have a broken overall model? Elizabeth, no, we care about that it broke the 0.5 because now we know, like, you know, at this candle, this is the crazy stuff, guys. Like, so what is happening here now? Oh, I have to go back here. So at this candle, it breaks the 0.5. So what we can do with our data now? How our data is changing now. So it's not upside, it's not downside, it's not downside, it's not a squeeze. Leaves us with only 2 remaining models. Leaves us with 2 models. So now, when we have a broken model, a broken downside model, what is the price action, not the model, what is the price action we expect? Please be precise as possible. We are not expecting range expansion, but we expect price behavior similar to a range expansion model, right? JDGR, it leaves you 2 models at 50-50 most likely. %, like I would say 60% range X and 40% upside. %60. Yes.
Yeah, but again, guys, looking at everything, right? Not that's the statistics, right? But then we look at
No.
volume, right?
It's fine. I'll come to this point, but like that's the statistic we have. We have like almost 60% probability that we will see a range expansion, right? And 40% probability that we will get an upside. So now I ask you, listen, now I ask you, just use your brains, right? Which trade is more interesting? Short trade, stop here, target here, right? That's your short trade, right? Or entering here, stop here, target here, for example. Yeah, long to low volume area, for example, right? So if you, again, we are not going today in everything, right? But like I have showed the multi-time frame, right? So you can narrow it down to 2 possibilities, right? And if you take everything into consideration, the likelihood is, or the probability for long is higher than for short in this scenario, right? And if you narrow down the data into broken model or not broken model, you will see that's what Santi is saying. That's what is Santi saying, right? Tracy, we only shorting because we're expecting a range expansion, and the minimum target would be a low below the ODR box, right? In this case. So that can be only our target. Even if you take a new low, it's a bad trade. Doesn't matter. Doesn't change the picture. Okay? So, again, the data I give you is like only the models. But if you listen to Santi, if you collect broken model and all of this stuff, right? You will come to a 70% probability that it's most likely going to be an upside model, right? Okay. Model data is not changing by instrument so much. Funny, because like everybody thinks everything is random, but like actually data stays almost the same with some variances. So we don't like the data I gave you right now are our ES data, but it doesn't make a big difference. Right? So macro guys, please focus on macro, not micro. Macro over micro, please. Right?
Yep.
So, and again, like I don't want anyone like, listen, this is not tunneling now, I use only models, right? Because like I said, okay, we have the volume mode down here, right? Let's turn on weekly DR. Look what is here. Weekly DRs, right? Just go step by step through our process. So what is here? No rejection from anything up here, right? So volume mode over here, weekly DR, midpoint weekly DR, we have this one. Let's turn on DRCs, right? DRCs, oops, this one. So there is a DRC here, nothing to the downside, so that would be a con for long, right? Or a pro for short, however you want to see it. Are we going multi-time frame, right? Multi-time frame, range limiter, and special exactly where this candle is, right? Inside our volume mode. Inside our volume mode, rejection from the upper range limiter, overall direction since the ODR is ass up, right? So that would be a pro for long. Let's check higher time frame imbalances. Support here, right? Rejection from here, neutral, both directions possible. Right? So directional we have, directional is also neutral, right? Okay. Again, and then we close the session for today, right? Don't tunnel on that, right? It's all together, right? Not one thing, right? But I hope you understand now why I'm begging you to do the model testing by yourself, right? Because you're gonna see all of the stuff we are talking here about, right? And narrowing it down in that scenario, right, to almost, not to almost, narrowing it down to 2 models possible is crazy stuff, right? And you don't have to be a magician to see that this is most likely going to be a trumpet, right?
Yep.
If you're unsure, you don't do anything, right? Short risk-reward ratio is bad. So if you don't want to long it, fine, don't long it, right? Doesn't matter. Like I'm always saying, it's all about avoiding bad trades in the first place. Everything I give, every new tool, every new explanation, every data point I give you is for one thing first, right? Avoiding stupid bad trades, right? First and foremost, Later on, obviously, you can even use it to make crazy good trades, right?
Please don't forget what you learned so far and just only use data now on the models, obviously. We're showing you how to collect the data, but don't tunnel. Remember the process, the many steps that you have written down that you need to follow every day, and this is just an extra.
Trident,
It will be
sorry for a second. Trident, I didn't say we should expect a trumpet. I was asking the question what a broken model means. Expect price behavior similar to a trumpet. But we are not expecting a trumpet model. And we have to be precise because we don't want to have misunderstandings here.
Yeah, because if you had that expectation, maybe you don't take this trade, right? This one.
Yeah, potentially. But it's like if you expect price behavior, right? It's just what it is, right? Alias, by eliminating lower probability trades last week, my R went up exponentially, didn't give anything back to the market, was a total game changer. That's exactly where we want to go. Like everything I give you on top of our standard stuff, the first and the foremost things I want you to do with is removing stupid or low probability trades. Not stupid is the wrong word. Let's remove low probability entries, right? And later on, the more you do the work with the data I give you, the more you can turn avoiding low probability trades into taking even higher probability trades, right? So again, I don't want to see anyone next week trading after the 9:30 candle, right? It all goes hand in hand, please, right?
But if you remember the session we had with Anand last week,
Yeah.
It's always important to start from a very basic task, right? Master the basic task, even if it has a lot of low, quote unquote, low probability trades. Those trades are still important for your development because it teaches you how to execute. It teaches you how to handle your broker. It teaches you how to press the button if you're not comfortable pressing the button. It teaches you the right mindset that even with a very low win rate, you still can be profitable. And then, as Alias just showed us, as soon as you start removing some of those expenses, then your profitability goes to the sky.
Yeah, and I'm going back to that what I said last week, right? Like stupid monkey, which is time entries only. The very first basic entry method I gave to you. Suitable for 7 years old and plus, right? One time, one exact defined time where you press the button every day. And you would be up until now over 90R this year, right? That's fundament. Add price to it. Gonna get better. Price retracements. Add the M7 box to it, and it's gonna get better. Add the model understanding, and it's gonna get better, right? But it's not possible. You can't start with the model understanding. It would be jumping on the horse from the back. High probability that the horse will just give you a big fat kick, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's stages of mastery, right? That's it. You need to climb through them. Otherwise, you're going to come back to your state if you don't put in the work.
Can you repeat in Prism which model include upside X and upside based models? It's so the only like this one is included. The upside extension plus model is included in upside X. So this one is right now in the data I gave you today. So this these models are included in these models. So I don't have this right now in the data, right? Okay. So discussion, guys. I think somebody on Twitter was saying last week, what did we do last week? Volume, right? Last week was volume, right? Somebody posted on Twitter that it was the most craziest session ever. At least in the last week.
Pattern in the academy.
Well, you should be amazed that I can still surprise you every session, right?
But when are the dots coming?
The dots, we still have the dots we still have, boys, right? And girls, we have dots. I have so much more, right? 48% we are now. Not even half yet, but we are coming close to half knowledge.
That's so crazy. Only 48%.
There will be a point when I'm done with it, right? Like at one point, like even my knowledge will be exhausted, but like we still have time to go, right? But I hope everybody understands, like the academy and learning DR, like learning from what I can teach you, right? Is not everything is step by step. Everything is building. Each block is building on each block, right? That's the most important, right? I mean, guess 3 months ago when we started talking about the M7 box, right? Now what we are doing now, like we are coming from time entries into retracement entries into, we can, like last time for 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, we talked about the pre-goldfish using only the box. Now I already gave you understanding in certain situation how you can front run the box, right? And believe me when I tell you, that's gonna get wilder even then. Because transition time is not only transition time. There's much more to it. There is data to it too, right? So, but everything needs to be digested, right? It's like I can't feed you donut after donut. At one point you're gonna puke, right? So it needs to be digested before I can feed you the next one.
Or become diabetic.
Oh yeah, or insulin is spiking so hard that you're like running around like somebody on drugs, right?
Yep. Dopamine all fucked.
And also, please, to the new students, unfortunately, if you just joined the academy and you're ending up in this live session, please understand that most of the people who followed what I explained here, right, they have been studying for 6 months. So for the new timers, really, best course of action. If you want to do the easiest way for yourself, start with my first live. All my recordings, all the live sessions are packed with knowledge and explanation. I'm not ICT or some other educator who's talking half an hour about nonsense. Like you can, like the best way of learning everything I can teach you is really starting with the first live and go live by live by live by live, right? Then you have the same treatment as the students who are here for 6 months, and you will come to the same knowledge level, right? And obviously do the Quantum Weaver course, start with DR Frame first lesson and all of this stuff, right? Sometimes I'm singing, yeah.
Come to the onboarding session.
Come to the onboarding session.
Watch the previous onboarding sessions, actually,
I'm gonna get myself a espresso, and Louis and Megge can have like a community discussion for 2 minutes.
Stream. Okay.
So guys, I think, Meg, I think the most important message I think that we've been speaking, right, is to take everything into consideration, right? Don't focus on the models, just look at everything, but also be aware, right? There's a reason why models, I'm guessing, right, is number 1 when we make that list as well, because it's very important, right? So be aware of that, backtest it, put in the work, and don't try to skip the process because it's not possible. you're just gonna get hurt. If you try to skip too many staircases, you're gonna fall down, right? So take your time, and I think even if you, for all of your goals, right, extend your horizon for when you want to achieve them, and I think you can be very successful in this academy and can achieve all of your goals, honestly. But just focus on the process every day, 1% better. And that's it, and you'll get there.
Don't get lost. It's easy, but it's easy to FOMO into wanting to get into the more advanced stuff. And I know it's easier said than done, but the reality is you need to start from the very basics. So, like, if you want to start with a level playing field and see how we raised such successful students like Anand, and you know that all the successful students, most of them went through the same process of understanding every single concept, which means they probably watched every single live, and some lives they watched it multiple times. It's not, some people prefer to jump ahead and learns by putting the pieces together, and it's also fine. As we said, there's no universal way of learning. Some people are very methodical, some people just like to be putting pieces together, until they make sense. At the beginning they don't make sense, so they ask a lot of questions on the individual pieces. So it's important, like, we are restructuring the content, we are making properly, like, new videos with, to the point, and everything will be structured. There will be quizzes, and we're gonna time gate your progression until you do certain exercises. We're gonna find a way to make you do backtesting and check the results of your backtesting on metrics against a standard backtesting. So, we will give you all the tools to be able to take the learning, systematically, like you would in a university degree. If you're new and you just joined today or last week, it's probably exciting to be looking at all this technical stuff and data that you don't understand. But you need to start a little bit, take a step back and learn about the basics, DR, wait for confirmation, look at DL lens data, learn to use DL lens data, find the time of retracement or the price retracement, take the trade in the same direction of the confirmation. Those are the basic building blocks that all of the people here have gone through. And please make sure to watch the last onboarding session from last Wednesday, where we had Anand, our wonderful student, who's, he told us he's making, at least under R per month, every month in the last 3 months. So, we asked him how he got there, and he told us his exact path from a break-even trader to, slightly profitable to consistently profitable to extremely profitable to insanely profitable. And it's like spiraling out of control without taking huge risk, right? It's not gambling on his account. He's only risking 0.4% of his account on any trade, and he's having insane results. So learn by him, learn from him. We have a framework how to start, follow it, start with the basics, be patient, do the work, spend a lot of time on your charts, try to put some thinking, in what you're doing, what you're backtesting. Try to, analyze the price action with your eyes, and not just because we told you something about, oh, when you have this model, then X% of the things happen. No, you need to come up with this observation by yourself. And that's how you form the connection in your brain, you wire your brain, and you see the right things, and you're going to be successful.
You know, the most important thing to understand here is that it's not a sprint, right? You have chosen to be in a very fortunate situation for your future life, right? Because compared to many other people outside who try to learn trading, and that's not to shine a light on me, but like what you learn here is so superior to everything else you ever could learn right now outside, right? Give it the time to learn it properly, right? Because going back to our example of mid of the session, right? It's you are the batter, right? And you have to take some swings. You have to learn before that's coming. But like every single one person here, if you give it enough time, right? If you focus on performance, improving, learning every day, you're gonna be unstoppable in 1 year ahead from now.
Yep.
When it comes to trading. And most likely because we are talking a lot about this technical and data stuff, right? But everybody who's longer here knows that a big focus from us is also on mindset for you, right? To bring your mindset into the right area where it has to be. And that's not going to affect only trading for you. It's going to affect your whole life. You will turn into a person overall more positive, more happy, more understanding, less stressed, right? And if you follow my other advice that you do some sports, some workouts, some meditation, it's also going to be, you're going to be a healthier person, right? And that's a really big thing if you combine everything together. So all you have to, everything what we are teaching here, like there is something which is called the 2190 rule, right? Do something for 21 days and it becomes a habit straight. If you do it for 21 days straight, it becomes a habit. If you do it for 90 days, it becomes a lifestyle, right? Let this sink in, right? So everything is ready for you to go on this journey, right? The only thing we can't do is doing the work for you. So the work, that's where my sentence is coming. Nobody cares, work harder, right? Because I simply can't do it for you. Luis can't do it for you, Maggie can't do it for you. That's the only decision you have to make, day one or 1 day, right?
Powerful.
Another amazing session, another light bulb moment, I guess, for most, right? Another understanding that we do the walk and not only talk. And another understanding that data is super superior, right? Okay, guys, that's it for today. Gonna wrap it up.
Quick one today.
Week 1 today, yeah. Sorry, guys. Only scheduled for 1 hour, so I have to leave you now.
Please open a ticket for a partial refund if this was not.
Yeah,
If you're a beater.
request a partial refund. Yes. Okay, have a good one, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Luis,
you.
as usual. And gonna
Thank you,
see you
guys.
tomorrow. Guess what? Gonna see you tomorrow again. Tomorrow, BSC in the house, so don't flood the chat too much, yeah? About what we discussed today. Else they're
Make them
gonna,
FOMO a bit.
they're gonna FOMO hard, and we don't want that, right? Okay, bye, guys. Have a good one.